Welcome to the Baseball Insiders. I'm Adam Weinrib, joined as always by FanSided's MLB Insider Robert Murray. It's a beautiful Thursday, 3:30 Eastern time. We are streaming, and the trade deadline is 2 quick months away, which means it's time to parse a couple of myths we've heard lately, give you the facts, what we're buying, what we're not, and a couple teams whose paths are becoming more clarified. And like Ken Rosenthal said about Juan Soto, why would he go to the Mets? I don't know. Perhaps we'll discuss that today as well. We'll discuss plenty of names heading into the deadline, and this is the first of many deadline shows in a row. I anticipate many more of them. And before we get too deep into it, Robert Murray, how you doing, dude?
Dude, I'm great, man. I have been on the phones basically since I woke up at like 5 a.m. today. It has been ridiculous. A lot of phone calls, a lot of conversating. It's trade deadline season. I mean, my favorite time of the year. So I'm absolutely here for it. Adam Weinrib, how are you doing?
I am good. Yeah, May, good month. The only month better than May is June. The only month better than June is July, trade deadline. August, also pretty good. September, not bad. October, best month of the year. So you know what? There's just a stretch of a whole bunch of great months in a row. So I miss May already. Sad to see it go, but love to watch it leave because it means June is here and we are ever closer to the trade deadline. And we thank everyone for joining us today. What's up, baseball fans? Probably all of you. DraftKings is offering you a no-sweat bet sign-up bonus for all new users. New customers who sign up with the code Baseball Insider and deposit at least $5 will receive a no-sweat bet up to $1,500 bonus on their first wager. This means if you place a first bet of $50 and you lose, you'll receive a $50 credit in bonus bets straight to your account, up to $1,500 worth of bonus bets. You'll also receive one single game parlay reward every day using our code Baseball Insider. Not only get to these bonuses, but it also directly supports our podcast. You've been considering signing up for DraftKings, make sure to use the code Baseball Insider to maximize your first bet. This offer is only available to new customers who are 21 plus and physically present in legal gambling states. Please remember to always gamble responsibly. Check the episode description for the full terms of the offer to see if you qualify. And join us in the Discord if you're not already in there. It's the only spot where you can chat with Robert and I between shows, ask us questions, get your questions ready, priority question asking for this live stream. And for those that are all-star level, we're going to have a private stream with you folks next week. We're planning on Wednesday. So start off June right. Next Wednesday night, we're going to do an all-star stream. Unless, of course, there's an objection to that, please yell at us in the Discord, not in the comment section. We can change that up. But tentatively planning for next Wednesday. All right, so let's get rolling. We want to talk about plenty of team-specific rumors as the show goes on. Get your questions in. If you have them, we'll be happy to answer them. But I figured let's start with the framing of a couple of trade deadline rumors that are flying around that we are not buying the smoke on so far, as well as one on the flip side that we actually do believe. We're still 2 months away from the date. It's hard to believe anything definitive right now, but I figured maybe one of these feels a bit realer than others. So let's start with a couple of rumors that you are not buying so far. Things we've heard in the past week, 2 weeks, at least smoke that we've seen that just does not pass the smell test so far.
The first one would be the Juan Soto extension talk. Like I've seen a ton of buzz about that on Twitter, and we've seen Soto turn down $400+ million from the Washington Nationals a couple of years ago, which prompted his trade to San Diego. And we've seen different speculation about how he could end up signing an extension with the Yankees before he reaches free agency. I don't buy that whatsoever. That is not. I mean, him turning down $400+ million from the Nationals, I mean, it was first indication that he was not going to take a deal before free agency. And then his agent is Scott Boras, and Boras is always a guy who tries to get his players in the open market so they can establish their value there. And he's one of the best free agents in recent memory. I think the only one better is probably Shohei Ohtani. And so Boras is not going to do an early extension before he reaches free agency. He's going to want as many teams bidding on Soto as possible, which is only going to drive up his price more and more. So I would be flat out stunned if Soto signed an extension before free agency. I've been wrong before, but I'd be really, really surprised about that. Another one, by the way, Andrew, I do read the comment section. I do not have an ability to comment in the comment section. That is all Adam. So I see your comments, but I am not able to respond to them unless I do it verbally. So there's that. Another one that I don't buy necessarily is that a Mason Miller trade is guaranteed. The A's have him controlled long-term at a very reasonable team-friendly rate. I don't see that being a likely scenario at all. I'd be really surprised. Let me rephrase that. I'd be surprised if he's moved. I wouldn't necessarily rule it out. Because there's teams that can always get desperate. Like the Orioles have the prospects necessary to get a deal done. The Cubs obviously have a need for a late inning reliever. There's so many of these teams that need a late inning reliever. So there's definitely going to be a market, but the price is so high that I think that makes it that kind of a deal tough. Canyon's calling me Tobert. Hi, Tanyan. So hello, Tanyan. And then another one that I do not necessarily. Well, I guess if we want to go into, can I go into stuff that we buy? Because I have more stuff that I buy that I sell, I guess.
Yeah, let's split it. Let's just do don't buy. We already said goodbye to the don't buys. Let's do some buys.
Yeah, let's do it. But also, Canyon, I don't think anyone is trading for Rowdy Tellez at this point.
Well, so that's another one that we don't buy. We don't buy that the Rowdy Tellez trade talk is legit.
Yeah, that's I don't think that's going to happen. At least unless he ends up bouncing back, then who knows? But yes, the Jeremiah Estrada stuff is very impressive. Set the strikeout record there. What was it, 13 in a row?
I believe 13. Yeah.
Yeah, which is incredible. So that definitely should not be overlooked. Good shot by Drew there. But stuff that we buy is I buy that Eloy Jimenez is a candidate to be traded. I think he makes a lot of sense for some of these teams who could need another outfielder. Very talented player, especially when he's healthy. That's been his biggest issue throughout his career, staying healthy. So obviously you got to have those questions in the back of your mind when you're trying to pursue a trade for him. And he's not signed long-term, which would make him more of a rental. That makes him an ideal candidate for the White Sox to at least get something in return. I know that trade, at least initially when they ended up making it with the Cubs, what was it? Eloy Jimenez and was it Dylan Cease?
Dylan Cease.
Yeah, Dylan Cease. Yeah, for Jose Quintana. that trade obviously worked out really well for the White Sox, but it could have worked out a lot better if Jimenez stayed healthy and lived up to his potential, I should say. I do buy that the Angels are listening on certain players. I was the one who reported that, so I would sure hope I buy that.
You buy your own intel still? Yeah.
Yeah. My sources on that one are quite good. But what else? And then I also don't buy that a Luis Robert trade is necessarily likely. I wouldn't necessarily rule it out, but I think that's more unlikely than it is likely. So I'm not getting my hopes up there, but the White Sox will listen on anyone. For the most part, I should say. So I think they'd listen on him, but I just don't anticipate a trade happening there.
It does feel like we've got plenty of options for the Atlanta Braves, whether it's mid-tier Kevin Pillar or high upside, plunging the depths of the White Sox to grab some all-star level bats, whether it's Robert or Jimenez. If there's one lesson the Braves should have learned from 2021, when they also lost Ronald Acuna for the year, it's that aggression will be rewarded at the trade deadline. So Alex Anthopoulos, we will see you this summer, or we will see you even sooner. Worth noting, too, you mentioned that the Orioles have a chance to just blow the A's away if they decide to on Mason Miller. Ironic timing, considering he just gave up a home run on a 100-plus mile-an-hour inside fastball to Jose Siri to blow a save 30 seconds before we hopped on. It was one of the craziest home runs I've seen this season. It's the fastest pitch a Ray has homered off of since Mike Brasso against Aroldis Chapman in the 2020 ALDS, which never happened. So it's the fastest one ever because that one never happened. But crazy. Miller is an all-timer. There's nobody like him. And Baltimore's got a real logjam. They're going to have to figure out what to do with these guys like Heston Kjerstad, who they need to send to AAA to get playing time, but don't have room for in the big league roster. And when they call up a guy like Kyle Stowers, he outperforms Kjerstad in limited duty. So you can't just win the AAA championship with the Norfolk Tides every year. It's a bummer. They've done an unbelievable job of collecting talent, but at a certain point you have to cash in these chips.
Yep, and I think this is an ideal year to cash in those chips. And if they're able to get Mason Miller, it's like you're able to cash in those chips, but it's not for a rental. It's a guy that you can have long-term in the ninth inning, and you can really just have that guy that you can count on. And I think that's extremely valuable because we saw last year what happened with Craig Kimbrell with the Philadelphia Phillies. It's not single-handedly because there's a lot of things that go into it, but he was a big reason why they did not end up getting to the World Series. And it's unfortunate for the Phillies, but we've seen it before. And I don't think the Orioles can really mess around with this because they have a really talented roster and it's going to be really talented for the long haul. And if they end up getting a guy like Mason Miller or even like a guy like Ryan Helsley, which we'll get into that in a little bit because it looks like the Cardinals, at least at the way they're trending now, probably not going to sell. But if they get a Mason Miller type, they're going to have that guy long term. And that's a really important and crucial thing and something I think they should really entertain.
Yeah, as you always like to say, St. Louis Cardinals, what the heck? But truly, what the heck? We'll go into them in a little bit.
Yeah. No, like legit unbelievable what's going on there.
Bizarro world. Yeah, and I would have absolutely not believed it if it wasn't the Cardinals. Like the fact that it's the Cardinals, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, the craziest thing that ever happened. That makes sense.
Yeah, Devil Magic.
Yeah, Devil Magic's back, and it's in St. Louis, of course. No, they're not letting anybody else borrow it. While we're here on Mason Miller, though, it's not like the Oakland A's are slouches in the other trade candidate department. We've mentioned several of these names in the past. I do think I just want to sort of focus on the A's. Like Miller, it's going to be this absolute haul if they do trade him. You're not buying that it's a done deal. But let's say if they explore a Miller trade, who else has value here? Who could be on the block? I mean, JP Sears, if you want to talk about control, that's a name that you're rarely going to see somebody hit the market with that much control. Lucas Urseg. I mean, the A's are in a spot where typically you'd think they would value these guys with 3-4 years of control, but I don't know if they even know or care what the future of the A's is, making them uniquely available this midseason.
Oh, 100%. And like it makes them just a really unpredictable team because they can go in a lot of different directions here. That being said, though, like I know even last year there was a lot of different talks around certain players, but they weren't willing to trade certain guys. But this year, I mean, with their move to Sacramento being rather, I mean, it's on the doorstep. I wouldn't say it's imminent. And then after that, who knows what's going to end up happening. But I think they're going to end up listening to on a lot of different guys here. And I mean, you listed those guys. I think a guy like Paul Blackburn would make a whole lot of sense, especially if he's healthy. I mean, that's one where I think I'm going to bring it up in a little bit, but teams are probably going to end up they could end up being more careful when it comes to guys that have injury risk at the deadline because they want to avoid a Frankie Montas situation because that was a disaster class for the Yankees when they acquired him from the A's. So like
what happened there ultimately? What did Montas do? I don't remember. I'm not familiar.
Yeah. Yeah. Nightmare. How many games did he even pitch with the Yankees? Like 3?
That's a great question. I want to say 6 starts, and then he threw an inning at the end of last year. So obviously good value there. 1.5 years of team control for 34 bad innings or whatever. So congrats.
Yeah, that's brutal. But yeah, like, I mean, I think if you look at the A's, I think that's immediately where your head can go. I think a Lucas Urseg type is a really interesting candidate there. Especially like his backstory. We've talked about it on the show before, but how he ended up going from an infielder who was, I mean, on the verge of being out of baseball and now gets traded to the A's, converts to a pitcher, and he looks awesome. And I think he can be a real under the radar candidate for some of these teams. Probably won't fetch like the biggest haul in return, but can be a useful guy, really good in the locker room as well. I think that's something that these teams should consider. And I think the A's will get quite a bit of interest in him.
Yeah, 8 starts for Montas. So again, good job, good effort, and a tough one if you're trying to play that pitching lottery ticket game at this particular deadline. Pitching injuries have never been more prevalent. GMs have never been more careful and smarter overall. So, yes.
I got something. I can't say it though, but it's fascinating. It's fascinating. Oh boy, yeah, it's interesting.
All right. We shall see. I'm sure we all shall see.
Yeah, I'll tell you. I wish I could say it. I wish I could, but I can't.
No, can't. I would never ask you to. I just want everybody pause the face, use that face as a meme. Robert's got something. So let's see what's popping.
Yeah.
Later, eventually. Well, in terms of that injury risk that we talk about, though, Ken Rosenthal noted this week that Jesus Luzardo is still sort of the top of the mountain in terms of high-profile pitching trade candidates mid-season. Rosenthal basically said that if he stays healthy, he will be moved. I guess, do you also get that sense that in the wake of the Arise trade, that one's kind of inevitable? And then any early teams standing out on him? Not to mention, you mentioned Montas already. Like, that's a Montas situation.
Yeah, it's 100% a Montas situation there. And it's to me, I saw what Rosenthal reported, and when he reports something, like you can always take it to the bank. I mean, Rosenthal's as good as it gets, and he's been the best for a reason. I'm kind of like, I'm not as strong on it because I think it's definitely possible, but calling a trade likely, especially with a guy who's got an injury history. I mean, he had an injury earlier this year, missed some time. I think that makes it a little bit trickier, and teams could end up having some of those concerns and want to avoid a Frankie Montas situation. He's controllable, which is always a good thing. A really strong, good, controllable, dependable starting pitcher, which, I mean, a lot of these teams need. So, I think it's going to end up being something where he's going to get a lot of interest. A couple teams to me that make immediate sense would be like the Baltimore Orioles and even the New York Yankees. I think those two teams really stand out as potential fits. Would not be surprised at all if they're in the mix or they check in or anything like that. But I think there's going to be widespread interest in Luzardo. The Marlins don't have to trade him because he is controllable. But at the end of the day, my guess is probably the Marlins are going to get an offer that's too good to be true, or that's going to be enough to their liking, and then they're going to end up trading him, and it's going to end up being a big deadline move. And Andrew, yes, I do know that he did miss on Scherzer in San Diego. I mean, that happened. We all have misses. Nobody's perfect. But you can't hold that against him. Like, Rosenthal's got one of the best track records in baseball and even reporting history. So we all have misses. It happens. He's bounced back more. He's bounced back in a huge way. So I'll have Ken's back, especially since he's been so good to me, and his work speaks for itself. So shout out to Ken. We will not do Ken slander. I know it's not slander by you, but we won't do Ken slander on the podcast here.
I have no interest in Ken slander. I do have interest in seeing just how large that package for Luzardo can eventually get, especially, like you said, a team like the Orioles got these prospects burning a hole in their pockets right now, and they're going to have to cash them in on somebody. Early returns, I mean, the Marlins have to be blown away. Were they blown away in the Arise deal? They liked what they got. They also let Wusuk go today. So they've already lost one member of that prospect package.
Yeah, I'll tell you that. I remember immediately in spring training, one of the first things that I heard was that Wusuk was just not good. And I mean, that consensus continued to linger around him, even during the season. And all of a sudden he was included in the Marlins trade. And then you really got to hear exactly how the Padres felt about him. And then now we see that he's DFA'd. That signing was a gigantic whiff by the Padres. Credit to them for identifying it right away and somehow finding a taker for him. But yeah, that was just a disaster of a signing and was never going to work out. Especially, I think it was reported even when he signed that he was going to be in the Padres as closer. So going from being a closer, at least reportedly, to being gone through two teams in like a few months, not great.
Overall, not fantastic. Was it him or Yuki Matsui where it was like a 3-week process where we couldn't get any updates on them whatsoever? I can't remember.
Yeah, was it? And also Eric Fetty.
Oh yeah,
that was bad. That dominated the winter meetings. I mean, everyone was asking, "Oh, what's going on with Eric Fetty?" And I'm like, "What the? I didn't expect all these Eric Fetty questions, but yeah, that happened."
It turns out, though, they were valid, considering he's got a 2.80 ERA through 11 starts and is going to get traded again this summer, almost definitely.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And like, I'll tell you, that's another really intriguing trade candidate. If we want to talk about that, I think he's going to end up getting a ton of interest. He's controllable, or he's got what he signed through next year.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're getting a year and a half of Fetty. I think he's going to attract big interest. So that's a name that I'm definitely watching here the next couple months.
The KBO rejuvenation pipeline is now like it's the new Moneyball. It's like a hack. Every single time you go ahead and go grab the KBO MVP, or just a veteran starter who attracted less than no interest on U.S. soil and then becomes a stalwart in the KBO, you're talking Fetty's going to get you a haul this summer. The Diamondbacks certainly know the benefit. I mean, it goes without saying, just go scout there.
Oh, 100%. I mean, Merrill Kelly has been a revelation since they
monster
him. Yeah, I mean, it's a really good thing. And like, I remember the Brewers, they signed Eric Thames, and he was awesome for them when they signed him away from the KBO. Like, it's just, there's so many different examples of it being good, and you hear players talk about it, and they loved it, and it just rejuvenated them, and it was just a really good thing. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if more and more players ended up doing that and then trying to come back to the majors. I know another one that did go overseas, then came back to the States. I want to say he's pitching in Mexico now, and is dominating there, is Spencer Patton. I have been told pretty definitively that he wants to be back in affiliated ball. So I mean, that could be another option for these teams that are trying to sign a major league caliber reliever. I mean, I know it's a small name, but it's something at least.
I miss Eric Thames. I'm glad we just mentioned him on the podcast. I just looked up his stats again. 125 OPS plus at 30 bombs immediately after coming over from Korea. What a guy.
I'm not kidding you. Like, I will never this is a core memory for me. I was in the Brewers clubhouse when they clinched a playoff spot, and I looked to my right, and all of a sudden I saw Eric Thames like smash 2 beers together. And like, if you know Eric Thames, he is just jacked beyond all. He was shirtless, and
he could smash 5 beers together. Yeah,
he could. Like, I mean, that was his thing, and I watched it, and I was like, "Holy crap, this guy's awesome!" But also, holy crap, this guy is terrifying. I would never want to make that guy mad my entire life. Thankfully, I didn't, because I'm still around to tell the tale. But he was a very nice guy. So shout out to Eric Thames. I'm glad we mentioned him on the pod here.
Yeah, I hope it's not the last time. Maybe we get Eric on the pod. I would love to see him drop by.
Yeah, there was one story I tried writing at The Athletic, and he actually agreed to it, but we just never did it because, well, I got let go before I could do it. But I was going to do a story like working out with Eric Thames, where we were going to like get a big lift in together, and I was going to like learn his workout routine and just get to know Eric Thames on a personal level. I still want to do that story. So Eric Thames, if you're watching this, I would love to do that story. So thank you very much.
Start your own YouTube channel or join us here. We would both love to do your workout, and one of us would love to complete it. Me, not so much. Not sure. Yeah, I don't know about that. Well, the St. Louis Cardinals at one point were 15-24 this year. Chicago Cubs were 23-16, first place, just about, battling it out with the Milwaukee Brewers. After a 6-4 Brewers win that wrapped a couple of minutes ago, the Cardinals are now a half game ahead of the Chicago Cubs. That means they are probably more likely to be buyers than wholesale sellers. Also, the Cincinnati Reds, a team with high expectations, probably closer to being sellers than the Cardinals are. Though what can the Reds really sell, considering they're mostly made up of a young core, and that young core is injured, and that's how we got here. And I don't know who wants to pick off the other expendable Reds. Nick Martini. Want to have that conversation? Right now, it looks like the Cardinals might add rather than subtract. How did we get here? Why did we get here? And sorry to everybody who's angry that we got here.
Yeah, I thought the Cardinals were dead in the water. They looked like a mess. I remember watching them against the Brewers, and they just looked deader than a doornail. And then all of a sudden, they've just turned it on. And I think I know a key reason for that has been their starting pitching is stepping up. I mean, Sonny Gray been very good, but also Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson have been dependable, solid, and sturdy. And I gotta admit I was wrong, at least for now. For now, I was wrong. I'll absolutely admit it. I ripped those signs when the Cardinals made them in the offseason. I thought this was just a continuation of the Cardinals not pursuing the right kind of starting pitchers. And I thought it was just going to end up being a disaster. And it did not. It didn't look that good on paper. I did like the Sonny Gray move, but they've all been very, very solid and dependable. And Sonny Gray's looked every part of the ace that they wanted him to be when they signed him. So I think Mozeliak deserves credit for that and sticking to his guns. It did not look pretty initially, but so far so good. They still need another starting pitcher. Like, you can never have enough starting pitching, and they need a 5th starter. So I would not be surprised if they do end up buying, if they end up looking for another starter. I mean, obviously they could use offense, especially another option behind the plate, the catcher, because, I mean, Wilson Contreras' injury, less than ideal. He'll be out an extended amount of time. There should be some catching options available. I know Elias Diaz has been already mentioned in some trade rumors already. So, I mean, they're going to have plenty of options, but so far they went from looking like a definitive seller to a more likely than not buyer, which is a huge twist and turn, but we still got 2 months until the deadline. A lot can happen, but they're absolutely trending in the right way right now.
Yeah, and how about Elias Diaz, by the way, MVP of the All-Star game last year. Everybody had their laughs like, oh, nice, 1 year All-Star. That's a funny one. We'll never see him again. Rocky's got to take advantage of, selling high at this point. Might make the All-Star team again this year. I think Ryan McMahon, probably your leader in the clubhouse for Rocky's All-Star, but can't rule it out. So the Rockies get a second chance at that deadline move. They botched it last year. They don't have to botch it again this year. Diaz can make a genuine difference for a potential contender, and he makes all the sense in the world. we were batting around with the Chicago Cubs before the podcast started, just sort of saying, if the Cubs consider themselves, wild card contenders, central contenders, what have you, and I think they do, then you got to upgrade that catching spot from borderline unplayable to potential all-star level.
Oh, 100%. And it's just, I don't know, man. What I can confidently say though is I'm so ready for trade deadline. Sorry, I got a text and I was kind of a little distracted. But what I can confidently say though is I am so ready for trade season to get here, because the way that my phone has started blowing up within the last couple of days, this is my Christmas. I thoroughly enjoy this. This is going to be a very fun deadline season. I am very confident for every podcast here to start with Drew asking if there's any Padres news. I am very excited for Canyon to be asking about the Pirates. I'm very excited for Jacob to continue to sleep during the shows.
Yep.
I'm very excited for all of it that comes with it. But I think we're going to have a lot of good stuff. I feel very, very confident about that.
I can't wait. We're already getting Kenley Jansen questions, which, what are the odds he's wearing a Red Sox jersey on August 2nd? Low. And it's not even, we talked about this last show, it's not even a death blow for the Red Sox. One of the most obvious gotta-do-its of all time is just trading Kenley Jansen, moving on, and continuing to build that bullpen.
Oh, 100%. I think even a team like the Dodgers can make some sense there. I mean, they need a guy in the ninth inning. He's got obvious familiarity. He can go back to playing California Love back at Dodger Stadium. I think that, it makes sense. There was rumors about it before the season started, but I don't think it was anything truly definitive or likely, but I think it makes sense. And he could possibly end his career there if he wanted to. I think it makes sense, but I'm sure there's going to be some other teams, but I think the Red Sox would be pretty smart to do that move.
There are going to be Kenley to the Dodgers rumors until Kenley goes somewhere other than the Dodgers. And it feels like this will probably resolve itself the way that we're expecting it to.
Yeah. And you can, I feel like people will even continue to ask, even if Kenley Jensen's traded elsewhere, was that a move where the team is going to immediately flip him to the Dodgers? It's crazy. But the Sports Update 33 is asking, are the Giants going to be on Bo Bichette?
Yeah. How about that?
It's a good question. It makes sense, but if the Blue Jays traded him now, they'd be really selling him low. And I know he's got a year and a half of control. They'd probably get more for him now than, they would maybe at the deadline next year. But I just don't think they're going to end up being in a position where they want to trade him now. I think they're going to want to end up keeping him for next year and trying to win next year when they have both Vlad and Bo Bichette under contract. So my guess is he stays. I'm sure plenty of teams, including the Giants, are going to check in on him, but I just don't think a trade is overly likely, at least as of this point.
They're going to need to get Matt Chapman's dog out of that crowded infield at some point, though. So look for them to trade Matt Chapman's puppy golden retriever out of the infield so they can properly practice.
Yeah, I would happily take that pup because that pup is adorable. It's an 80 grade pup, according to some scouts that have seen the pup. So that's the scouts, by the way, are both my eyeballs. So yeah, that's a very, very adorable pup.
I have heard the pup will receive the qualifying offer at the end of the year, and the Giants will receive 3 schnauzers in return if he does depart for a larger free agent contract.
Yeah, Adam Weinrib, as always, is on it with the scoops. That's as big of a scoop as I've ever gotten. So
don't aggregate me. Don't come on. If I see that on the internet, I'm gonna know where it came from because I'm the only one who said it. So
MLB deadline news is probably aggregating that as we speak.
Yeah. If you're looking for stuff to aggregate, why don't you hop on into our next stream? We will be back here again next Monday, 3:30 Eastern, taking you through the latest in the Buzz department and plenty to talk about today. Even 2 months out of the deadline, plenty of rumors to debunk, endorse, analyze, all that good stuff. We would love to see any and all of you back here in the comment section. Make sure to join us in the Discord if you haven't. Get your questions in between the shows. We will prioritize them if you're in early. If not, show up in the chat, drop your questions as the show unfurls, and we will make sure to respond to as many as we can. I'll pop them right on the screen. Robert does check them during the show, but again, he can't respond. I'm the only one who can type. So if you troll me in the comments, just know that the Baseball Insiders YouTube channel will be coming for you, and it will be, in fact, me. But Robert, we'll see you right back here, 3:30 Eastern on Monday. This was a nice little return to the comfort zone today. This was good stuff. Oh,
this was good stuff. A lot of trade deadline talk. We love that. Jorge Lopez, Andrew. There's not much we can really say there. That's it happened.
It wasn't good.
No, it was terrible. He got DFA'd. I mean, yeah, I mean, he says he's got misquoted or misinterpreted. I mean, that's really all we can really talk about. It's kind of beating a dead horse at this point. But
yeah,
we'll see everyone back here on Monday. That'll be a good show. I'm sure we'll have plenty of stuff to talk about it. I think we'll definitely have stuff to talk about. I'll leave it that way.
We'll put it that way. We'll see you at the end of the weekend. Everybody enjoy the end of May, the beginning of June. Kick your feet up. And when you're done with your weekend relaxation, we'll be right back here Monday, 3:30 to talk you through the latest in baseball here on the Baseball Insiders. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.